And our next guest is Mark Zaid. Mark actually needs no introduction if you've ever read any of the guidance coming out of the White House, because he's the attorney. He's a FOIA expert, so Freedom of Information Access requests, and also has a lot to do with national security and has represented whistleblowers for against numerous administrations, both Republican and Democrat. However, as I said, his name is awful familiar to you if you've ever read the daily guidance from the current president, because he was named specifically as someone they want to take away his access to classified information. Mark, thanks for joining us for this conversation. I guess my big question to you is how dangerous is what's going on to the Constitution? How does it affect you personally? How does it affect the country?
Right. So I've had a security clearance, authorized access to classified information for over a quarter century, including through both Democratic and Republican administrations, including in the first Trump administration where they actually increased my access to a higher level of eligibility, notwithstanding why they're taking away or have taken away my clearance now. But this is significant. It impacts my ability to represent many, many clients. Most of my clients are often intelligence officers, and I have to have access to classified information to represent them. It has nothing to do with politics. It's just, they're employment cases within
Right.
the different agencies. I often never deal with the White House. I'm not a political guy. I try to stay out of politics. Although, again, I've represented Republican members of Congress, Democratic members of Congress. It doesn't matter to me. I go after them all. It's all about accountability. But what happened to me as I got grouped in a very austere and prominent sort of circle of individuals, all of whom, other than me, were political. They were either elected Democratic officials or they served in Democratic administrations, and they are ideological, which is nothing wrong with that on either side, but that's not me. So effectively what happened is the Trump administration, in taking away the security clearances of those perceived to be political enemies or legal adversaries, might has just, taken away the clearances of anyone who's Jewish, or anyone who's Muslim, or any women, or any homosexuals, or any Democrats. Take all those clearances away, because there's no difference, because none of us did anything that individually impacted our security clearances in a way that was detrimental to the national security interests of the United States. So it was just this broad brush. I don't like you, clearance gone.
How dangerous is that for the? Obviously it's dangerous, but if you can spell out as far as free speech and the ability, I will go to habeas corpus if you want, but I mean, how dangerous do you find this behavior to be in reference to free speech?
Well, it is the notion of, are we living in a monarchy where the king is in power versus a republic or a democracy where there is a process? And the one thing we have seen in this administration, far more than the first administration, although it was desired, it just wasn't implemented in the same way, was any decision that emanates from the President of the United States, that's it. No due process that surrounds it, whether it's deporting someone, from the state of Maryland who's perceived or is illegally here in the United States, no due process. Declaring someone to be a gang member, maybe they are, but no due process. Firing individuals like whom of folks I'm representing without having done anything wrong, but no due process to be able to defend that action. So this is part and parcel to it. Some lawyers have had their clearances suspended. Others, like myself, had their clearances revoked. Most of the people who didn't even have a clearance who were targeted by the President of the United States. But that's besides the point. That's a different issue. But look, this is the sort of the definition of what type of government do we have, where we grew up understanding there are three branches of government that are co-equal, whereas in the Trump administration, their view is the executive branch is the dominant and sole branch, and the others only exist to serve what the executive wants.